and destroy. You know they're always getting late. Rip and destroy.
Good evening and welcome to episode 3 of Watching You. I'm Jeff Scott in St. John, New Brunswick, and joining me always from Stewiacke, Nova Scotia is Jeff Gray. How are we doing tonight, Jeff?
Doing fantastic. I can't wait for this topic.
Yeah, this is great. Happy day in Canada today for
Yes.
Kiss fans. What's happening?
Oh man, we just got it. We got the rumors are true. We're actually getting
Yep.
a few Kiss concerts in St. John, New Brunswick, and Halifax, and St. John's, Newfoundland, and out west as well. So it wasn't a big lie, and we all got tickets.
No. We got tickets. We got to give a big shout out to the third member of East Coast Kiss Tribute, sort of the silent member. But Blair, our drummer, he was able to get pre-sale tickets, and he got us some great seats. So I've got 2 tickets for St. John, New Brunswick, and Jeff, you're going to see them in Halifax.
Absolutely. Thank you, Blair.
Yeah, drummer extraordinaire. Good singer, too.
Yeah.
We'll probably insert some video of Blair singing and playing the Kiss tunes.
Well, you'll see Blair. There's a video on there now of us doing a 2112 Cyclo Circus, and Blair's on that.
It's excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So our topic tonight is...
You better say it. I'll get the title wrong. There's so many different versions of the title.
Well, I've recently discovered that Kiss Meets the Phantom, a.k.a. Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, also exists as Kiss Attack of the Phantoms or Kiss in the Attack of the Phantoms. I'm not sure.
It depends on where they released it. It was different in Italy and different places like that.
Yeah. And I just recently watched it, and it's different. The editing is different. The story is slightly different. There's footage on that DVD that's not on the original American release. Strange.
I got to say something though. That right now, I just want to rip and destroy something. I really do. I want to break things. That song. Doesn't that song do that to you? I mean, that's what it did to everybody else.
Yeah, it made me want to jump up and smash my guitar and my home and injure people.
I got some styrofoam cups here I smashed here just before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've got a number of topics we're going to get through. I guess we're going to deconstruct the film, talking about what we like about it and what's kind of campy. Well, the whole thing is campy. But we're going to deconstruct and talk about it. And I think this is my perspective on it. I think that for anyone who's a fan of the film, anyone who's a fan of Kiss, who came on board a little bit later, like say in the 80s or the 90s, I think Kiss Meets the Phantom is pretty much just one of those things that exists amongst all the paraphernalia and the merchandise and the albums. And that's just one of those things that Kiss put out in the 70s. I think for someone who was a big fan of the band in the 70s, Kiss Meets the Phantom was an event. It truly was an event. I know for myself because I was only 12 years old. I was a diehard. I absolutely look forward to that film as much as I look forward to Christmas morning. I just could not wait. My friends, we couldn't wait. We were excited. It truly was an experience. And I think the reason for that is because home video didn't exist in 1978. Nobody could just pop in a cassette and look at Kiss. So for myself, I had no idea what they really looked like on stage. I mean, we had records, we could hear them. We had magazines and posters, we could see their pictures. But if you hadn't seen them live, I was really wanting to see that aspect of Kiss. I had no hope of seeing them live where I lived in Newfoundland. Ironically, they have played Newfoundland since. But no, that was my only chance to see what they look like on stage. And I didn't care about the story. I didn't care about Devereaux. I wanted to see Kiss, and it did it for me. I was quite entertained by the film.
I think everybody was in the same boat. I mean, we talked about that a little bit in the last episode. We talked about the Kiss cover. Well, in the first episode, we talked about the Kiss covers, the scarcity of the material, only seeing things in magazines. So when you described it very aptly. You said it was an event. An event means a lot of different things. So
yes.
But you're right. At that time, we craved any kind of contact that we could get with the band, any live contact that we could get, any pictures, any video that you could possibly dig up. Now, I'm really glad that you want to talk about the Halloween special because that was, that would have been my first, actually seeing them in the flesh and blood, actually moving, and even though they lip synced, it didn't matter. right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time, and then I was fortunate enough, like as you know, in '77 I saw them in concert. So the movie
Yeah.
came in a very different place for me, and we'll get to that when we get to that point. But
Yeah, the Paul Lynde special. I did see it. I saw it live. I wasn't that interested in the band at the time, but I certainly took notice. I think I was trying to fix my bass drum pedal. I remember in the living room I had this old drum kit, and the bass drum pedal needed maintenance almost on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So I'm fixing this thing, and it's on TV. So I'm certainly looking up, but I don't really think I like the music that much. I know they did DRC and King, and I didn't really care for the music too much. But something they did, our local TV station in Newfoundland, they had taken a snippet of Beth, and they used to run that occasionally between programs on television. So everyone became very familiar with Peter Criss and very familiar with Beth. But the rest of the band was sort of a little bit of a mystery. Sometime after that, I became a diehard, and I was buying albums and I was collecting magazines and posters. So when Phantom came on, I was ready for that. But the Paul Lynde special, like I say, I saw it live, but I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it. I'm sorry that I didn't. But I think it's important to mention the Paul Lynde special as a footnote, because it really was the first hint of those guys being something other than just a rock band. They were sort of that superhero image.
well, there's a huge difference in the two performances in terms of the movie, in terms of the image they were trying to portray with that, and actually what they were trying to portray with the Paul Lynde special. Like I said, I watched it over again, and you can really tell that the image that they wanted to portray in the Paul Lynde special was very much aloof. We're above this, very much like the Mike Douglas special. This, not campy for them at all. Paul Lynde was fantastic. He was funny, but he was the perfect, he was the perfect foil for them. But they played it dead serious, and they came across as kick-ass, fire-breathing. There was no make believe going on there. The energy level was super high. Right, and there was no crowd noise, and the theme was perfect for them, the Halloween theme, right? So,
it fit perfectly. But I think the park is a good setting as well.
Sure, it is.
Film.
Yeah,
they both work. The Halloween setting, the amusement park, the circus. There's so many things that work well with Kiss. I find that they become a little bit sort of superhero-ish when the Wicked Witch of the West begins speaking to them. And Paul gets one line, and that's about it. And then Gene gets a line. He says, "We don't wear makeup." And I think the only thing missing there is that shimmering echo that they added to all of his lines on Kiss Meets the Phantom. That would have just made it for me.
I know this was a big movie for you. So let me ask you a question. So how many people around you felt the same way? When you, in other words, were you alone, or did you have other people around you who were just as excited?
Well, I that night, it was a Saturday night, and normally we'd be out till all hours, but me and my friends, we all went to our own respective houses quite early. We couldn't afford to miss it, like get involved in some activity and forget about it, and say, oh my God, it's now 9:45, we've missed the first 50 minutes of it. We couldn't afford that. I think everyone was home by 8 o'clock, 8:30. And we watched it in our own homes, respectively, but the next day, that's all we talked about. Now, my sister thought it was total crap. My father laughed. I think Mom just went off to her room and watched something else, the Country Channel.
Yeah.
I was the only person, and I mean, when it ended, I was just like, it was like the end of Christmas Day, because I couldn't record it. I knew it wasn't going to come out on DVD the next year. That was it. When do I see these guys again? And it really was. It was sad when it ended. It was a bad movie. I know that now, but I was sad when it ended.
I don't. Technically, is it a bad movie? Yes, it's a bad movie. But because it's a bad movie, it makes it more interesting in some ways. And I really do believe that. I really think that cult following of this film, and how if it was actually a little bit better, it probably wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
I mean, it makes perfect sense, because there's so many things that are like that. You say it's so bad, it's good.
Right.
Some things are like that.
You shared a video with me today of a guy, and I won't get into too many specifics,
Yes.
but who was playing, and it really was so bad that it was good. It was like you're gonna watch it so many times, and it wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough.
Let's
get on your
topic.
topics. Try and stay on topic.
Well, let's think about the very opening of the film, and,
Yeah.
and what we get are Kiss playing against the backdrop
Right,
of this carnival and this fair, and I think works so well. What I absolutely love about the opening is that Peter Criss gets top billing, and I know they were just doing it alphabetically to be fair. Peter Criss is the first one. He's playing air drums, and he's got this roller coaster in the background. It's great. Ace Frehley gets second top billing. I love that. Then you have Gene and then Paul. It's important to have that opening segment because the down part of the film is that it spends so much time setting up this plot line with Devereaux and Melissa and Sam and those stupid beatnik teenagers who are just hanging around and get captured by Devereaux. It takes, including commercials, I think Kiss don't appear for about 40 or 45 minutes. And I remember when I was 12, I didn't care about the story. I just wanted to see Kiss, and that was the most annoying thing. Had I not seen Kiss in the opening credits, I would be watching this film and thinking, is this the Kiss movie? I don't know. Occasionally there is some mention of them playing. Yes, Kiss are coming to save this park, and they're going to make shows and matinees. You see a Kiss makeup contest, and we needed those things to remind us, yes, this is the Kiss movie.
For sure.
But it took way too long to get Kiss on the stage.
Yeah, I remember they had all these little. It was so odd because you're in this park, and hey, where are Kiss signing autographs? And somebody stops, and they stop exactly the right people. They stop Devereaux and the other guy, and then there's this contest going on with the little girl wearing the Peter Criss makeup, and in the background it's tonight, get your tickets for Kiss. Or something like that, right? Something you'd never see out in the real world. Like, there's no way,
No.
But you're right.
It was disappointing, but at the same time, I didn't care about the story, but I certainly followed the story.
Well, you mentioned you wanted to see Kiss, so it's like the same thing happened to Detroit Rock City, that movie.
We don't see them till the very end.
Which, anyway, we won't even go there because that
no, we can't compare it to DRC.
No, but as a kid, but the feeling as a Kiss fan for sure, and I really was, I watched that movie, being drugged into watching that one, and that was like, okay, I didn't know why I bothered, right? So that at least this one had something to it.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. These four doofus guys trying to get to Detroit, and they put the Kiss makeup on those disco-hating guys or disco-loving guys. I thought it was funny.
Did you really?
Yeah. So anyway, I think that opening is so important, and that does give us a sense of Kiss performing, even though it's not really a performance. It's just snippets of them. When they do get to perform, I think the entrance is absolutely ridiculous because they kind of enter on these. They fly in from outer space.
What's ridiculous about that?
And then I don't know. I mean, I wanted the you wanted the best, you got the best, and then the stage explodes. It's weird. So they come flying in on these laser beams. Paul shoots a laser beam, then he walks down across it. You get Gene turns around. He's wearing this ridiculously huge Dracula cape with the collar about 5 feet too wide, and they don't even jump into a song. At least on the edit I saw recently, they go into the ending of Black Diamond. It's like the ending. It's really weird. I don't know. It's bad editing is what it is.
Well, that movie's fraught. Throughout that movie, there are little edits that I don't understand, and that's one of them. No. The other one I didn't understand was the beginning of the movie. The beginning of the movie is you're coming over top of a roller coaster, I think, before they even get to that. But
well, that establishes setting.
I know, but your first scene is like you're coming over a roller coaster. It's like, okay, and then what I was wondering though is why did they all the discussion about Rock and Roll All Night? Why do you think they used the studio version of Rock and Roll All Night versus the live version?
Well, that's funny because when they perform on stage, there's a mixture of live versions versus studio versions, and some of them. I was listening to it recently, and I thought, that's not from the studio. It sounds live, but it's not Kiss Alive or Kiss Alive 2. It sounds like something that was recorded somewhere else.
Right.
Maybe it was a reject from Kiss Alive 2. I don't know, and it was bad. Paul screams, and it's awful. So that they used a mishmash of all kinds of stuff for that.
That really struck me because that's always been an issue for me. That particular song was a song that, actually, because Rock and Roll All Night, the live version of that song was the song that got everyone to go to a live. right? That's the song that got them to that album. So that was their break song, and then they did this.
Oh,
and then
for
they
sure.
did the studio version of it in the movie. It's probably just easier to mix, and you don't have to deal with the crowd noises and all that kind of stuff. But
You know, and you probably don't even have Gene and Paul there. It's probably just some guys sitting down and mixing this together, and they were given a bunch of records or master tapes or something.
yeah,
And so rock and roll all night. Let's cue it up. I don't know. They probably put no more thought into it. I mean, there's a lot of moments in this film you could say there wasn't much thought put into that. But when they do perform a full song, they get shouted out loud, and I'm pretty sure it's the Destroyer studio version.
yeah.
But that's great because I waited a good 45 minutes, and I finally get to see them playing. I watch it now, and I realize the synchronization is totally off because you hear a drum beat, and Peter is like just going mad on tom-toms. You're not hearing that. You see Ace during a solo, but his hand is up saying the lower position. So it doesn't match. But I didn't know that when I was 12 years old. I just totally enjoyed seeing them in their costume, them on stage, them moving. And I thought, now it's real for me because the records and the posters and the magazines were great. But the visual performance of that Shouted Out Loud made it all so real for this little up-and-coming Kiss fan of 12 years old.
Well, it's funny because it's like that with a lot of things, and what you're talking about is that when you first saw that movie, there was a lot of emotion involved. There's so much emotion involved, and your expectations were at a certain level based on that. I mean, you were just happy to see them. I mean, you weren't looking at it with a critical eye. After the 15th time you've seen it, after being a guitar player for the last 30 some odd years, playing their music, you look at things with a different eye, and we lose and that's unfortunate in some ways because we lose our innocence in a way because we never see. You can never go back and see something again for the first time, and that's why I've resisted. I've resisted for a lot of years to not going to see Kiss play. I'm going to go see them this summer because I feel like I have to, but I'm gonna. But I really have had lots of opportunities. I resisted because I didn't want to ruin. What I remembered from 1977. I know if I did, it would change it for me. So anyway, that's a long drawn out piece, but I can understand why you were emotional about it, and I'm the same way. My standards for them on that movie were completely different too. I mean, now I puke when I see people lip syncing as a matter of course.
Oh, I know. I mean, you see it on these TV shows, Solid Gold in the 80s. That whole thing was lip synced, and I knew it then, but I didn't know what Kiss were doing on this movie. And also, when I was 12 years old, I hadn't seen any great cinema. My favorite shows were Charlie's Angels, Love Boat, and Fantasy Island. This Hanna-Barbera production was no better in terms of quality or editing or script writing. Put me now in university in the 80s, and I actually did some film courses. We studied Kubrick and Hitchcock and Citizen Kane, and I was in a great photography society where we were looking at the art of the visual. And now I think it was sometime around 1986 or 87, and I went into a video store and I rented Kiss Meets the Phantom, and I stick it in the machine, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. But it's because I'm so much older and I was able to compare it to things like Hitchcock and Citizen Kane and Kubrick. And you can't compare is a very, very bad word because you can't compare. It was my first favorite band. I had a favorite band for the first time in my life. We had K-Tel records and I enjoyed music. But for the first time in my life, I had a favorite band. And you get as excited about that as like your best friend or your favorite TV show. That's when you're 12 years old, you have these favorites. And you categorize everything. And I didn't want any other favorite bands. That was it. I was buying Boston and Cheap Trick records. But Kiss was the favorite. Boston could put out a new album and I might not buy it. But Kiss would put out a new album and I'm going to buy it because they're my favorite band. And I lost sight of it in the 80s, but you know what? They're my favorite band again.
There you go.
And it's like being 12. The 90s was like the 70s for me because they got back together. They put on the makeup, and it's like I'm seeing Kiss live for the first time, and it was the summer of 96. I drove many miles, but it's like, wow, this is my childhood all over again. And history repeated itself because in 82, 83, Peter and Ace were flying off, and in 2002, 2003, they were rebuilding the band with new members. So it's almost like 20 years later, history repeated itself. So almost like a carbon copy.
Yeah.
I just don't know who went first. It kind of came in dribs and drabs.
I remember that in '96 because that was that reunion started to happen just as I was moving away from St. John, and you and I had been had connected around Kiss, and I remember how excited we were when the reunion was going on. I mean, it was huge for us then at the thought that was going to happen again. But it really was taking us back. That 1996 was taking us all the way back to this point. It was taking us almost back, for me, almost back to 78, 79. I know they did material after that, but I really wasn't as interested in Unmasked. I wasn't interested in Creatures by that point. So this was really taking me all the way back to this movie at that point. So, what else you got on this movie? Anything?
Well, I think it's. I think there's certainly some visually interesting moments in it. I think it's kind of interesting when they're sitting around the swimming pool with those big gray robes on, and I don't know if there's any kind of meaning behind that. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, they're certainly not swimming. I can't imagine them in the pool swimming. There's a great line where they're looking for Kiss, and one security guard says maybe they're in the pool, and this other security guard, seriously, he says, "Rockers don't bathe."
Yeah,
it's a great little moment. Yeah, but you come in and it's like scorching. It's in California, it's in the summertime. It's scorching heat. The security guards are just sweating like crazy, and here are these guys in leather and makeup and these big robes on, sitting on lifeguard chairs. I don't know. It's someone's idea of a visual, but it's weird.
I just keep thinking, all those little scenes like that always throw me for a loop because there's all of a sudden they'll meet Melissa or they'll be talking to somebody out of the blue, and they're just I'm thinking, these guys are actually going to sit around. I guess that's the superhero part of this, right? I think of little things like, don't they eat and don't they have to go to the bathroom? Like, where are they going to go to the bathroom?
No, they don't. They don't pee.
They don't pee.
Well, we know Ace would have to pee at some point in time.
Oh God! Yeah, they're just sitting, and where are you going to find this? Because they're sitting in these tall chairs around the pool. They don't talk. They don't drink. They don't do nothing.
They don't. They don't bathe.
They don't bathe. They're just looking at watching the ripples in the water. I don't know what they're doing.
And they're almost like the Godfather behind his desk, ready to accept people as they come with their problems. So they deal with these security guards, and then they leave, and then they're just sitting there, and then Melissa walks in, and Paul goes, "Hello, Melissa."
We should take.
Like, how'd you know my name? I'm looking for my boyfriend. It's just weird script writing. That's what some of the bits that make the movie kind of bad.
I think you might be onto something there, though. But like the whole Mount Olympus. No, about them sitting up high in these chairs. It's sort of the Mount Olympus, the Zeus.
No. So yes, you're onto something. What I wanted to add is it's foreshadowing. It's the Council of the Elder.
Oh yes, but you're getting to my favorite subject of the movie. I think you're starting to talk about Melissa.
Oh, Melissa. Yeah. Well, there's Melissa. Her name is Deborah Ryan. It's hard to find anything on Deborah Ryan on the internet. She did some soap opera stuff. She certainly was the eye candy in that. Certainly Paul Stanley's type, I think. But I thought she played her part well. She looked disturbed when she was disturbed, and frantic when she was frantic, and probably one of the better actors in the movie.
Pretty 70-ish. It was very 70-ish sort of. She kind of reminded me of the character in the Star Trek movie where they go back in time and go back to Earth in San Francisco, and there's a woman there. It's a whole different thing, but very 70s, 70s woman Farrah Fawcett type, right? And
yeah, but something. I look at that now and I'm thinking Deborah Ryan, and with that hairstyle is almost kind of timeless. She would fit in today because that hairstyle is popular again. And
I thought nothing wrong with Melissa.
I don't think she's overly Farrah Fawcett. I mean,
no.
Farrah Fawcett with that feathered hairdo, I think it would look ridiculous, and you certainly have a chuckle. But to me, she just looks great, and I think she looks timeless. So.
I can't. Not much I can say about that. She's timeless for me too.
Yeah, I can't find a picture of her recently to compare, so maybe that's a good thing.
Well, I suspect she looks a little different now, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Another neat thing that occurs in this film is when they meet Melissa and they decide to take her under their wing, which is kind of funny because we know how Kiss would normally treat a young lady they would meet and take under their wing. But in the film, of course, it's family entertainment. So they have to, treat her like a lady, which they should do, but they're sympathetic and they want to help her with her problem. And they're sitting around this pool and Paul Stanley is playing the guitar and we get Peter Criss singing Beth. And this is the first time we hear Beth sung or performed in a manner that's different than on Destroyer or on the Alive 2 record. Many years, almost like a foreshadowing, because many years later they would do, I think Peter Criss did an acoustic version of Beth on one of his solo albums. And I believe it's the one where he's got a half-face Peter and a half-face Catman. But also later on the Unplugged album, Unplugged, they would perform Beth acoustic. But that actually first appeared in '78 in this film, and I think it was well done.
It was. I mean, I don't really have much to say about that. I mean, they brought that out. I don't know what the scene. I think she was at that point in the movie. She was forlorn. She couldn't find Sam. They're all sitting around, and she's it's kind of playing to her mood is what they're doing at that point.
Yeah. They're trying to comfort her with a song.
But I couldn't help but think this throughout the whole movie. Just as you said, I'm thinking, okay, there's no way that Gene would treat her the way he's treating her. Like, think about the lyrics of the songs. There's no way. I mean, there were way too much chivalry going on there for them, right? So, but you said, it was a foreshadowing of the family entertainment. We had it. It was beginning then. The whole park theme is very much, and circus theme is where they're at today, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Theatrically, there's some great moments in the film that I absolutely love, and again, the stunts and the fighting are really, really bad and campy. But I love it when those white apes come out. So Kiss are trying to find. I don't know who they're looking for. I don't even think they know who Devereaux is at that point in time. But they're trying to find out there's something wrong with this park, and it all leads to Devereaux. How they know that, I don't know. But they're walking through the park, and they come close to a roller coaster, and these white apes come jumping down, and it's a really cool fight scene. And although it's just men in silver costumes, but I think the masks are kind of cool. They're like apes, but they got all this white fur. And I don't know if maybe they were made for some other production and didn't get used. I don't know if they were made for the Kiss thing, but it seems almost like a little bit more production into those ape heads than any other part of the film.
Yeah, I just, when I saw that, I just didn't see the connection necessary to anything. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, especially where they're climbing down the roller coaster, the sides of the roller coasters, and I think the version I saw of it, they were actually playing New York Groove in the background.
Well, that's an interesting point, because when you watch the original American release, all the music, except for when Kiss are performing, a lot of the music is that campy 70s. It sounds like Charlie's Angels theme. Anything you would have heard in Charlie's Angels or Beretta or Police Story, any of those 70s cop shows. That's the music, like doom ticka wow wow wow. The wah pedal and the the trumpets and this orchestration, and that's what you get through any. Yeah, the theme from Shaft. It sounds just like that. That's what you get in a lot of those scenes. The European release, they took all that out and they inserted music from the solo albums, which I thought was really cool. They should have had Kiss music in the original. But it's a good laugh to go back and watch the original American release with all that campy 70s cop music. And it's just
it's pretty hard to find. I mean, when you and I had this conversation, and I'd forgotten that, and the version I'd watched recently was with all the solo album stuff in it, and you pointed out, well, no, that wasn't an original. I went back to try and find it, and it's hard to find on YouTube, that original stuff.
It is. Yeah, I have the VHS, and apparently they're worth a few dollars on eBay.
I bet they are. But they were...
because it's the original.
They're following somebody when they come across these when they come across these cat ape creatures or whatever they are. And anyway, it's another fight scene that you get to see some of the skill sets that there's the superpowers that you didn't know they had, like Ace can make them disappear and show up somewhere else, and
Yeah, he'd do this.
yeah.
He'd just bring his arm up and they'd all disappear.
Yeah, and then
it's kind of like Super Friends in a way. Like everybody had their own superpower.
I noticed Peter Criss's guy stunt double always did the same moves. Always did the hip throws, and it was always certain. It was always you could tell, right? Anyway, it was fun.
I mean, watching it when I was 12 years old, I couldn't tell the real guys from the stunt doubles because I just didn't see them enough. But after 40 years of following Kiss, you watch this now and you realize it's so obvious which one is the stunt double because it just doesn't look like
especially
him.
Later, yeah.
And apparently Ace and Peter were incredibly impatient. I mean, you're on a film set. I've been on a film set, and it's a lot of sitting around waiting for something to happen. So they had to use those stunt doubles in a lot of places because those guys were just, they get into makeup and they sit around for 5 hours, and it's like Ace said, frig, I'd rather go party with some friends and sit around and do this. So oftentimes they took off and they had to get other people to do, like Peter Criss's looping. It's not his voice. It's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon actor.
I read something today that he had gotten into a car accident and they had to do some of that, and that's one of the reasons why they did that. I often wonder, though, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just as a footnote, it was the last day of shooting, and he was with Fritz Postlethwaite. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And I'm not exactly sure what Fritz's position was in the organization, but it was he and Fritz who got into a car accident. Just ironically, it happened to be the last day of shooting. So
I got the sense around this time of the band that Ace and Peter, and there's all kinds of other reasons, and there's a whole different videocast or podcast to talk about that, but I really did get the sense that they started to see some things in the band. They had a little bit of vision themselves in terms of things that they didn't, I think Peter Criss would call it, just didn't feel rock and roll to them. You know what that happens. Like if you're a teenager in high school and you're just not buying what's going on, you start rebelling and you just start doing things. And it may have been drugs, it may have been alcohol. That could have caused it as well. But I definitely got the sense that at that point they were, this was all a joke, becoming a joke to them, while Gene and Paul were still buying sort of the company line and wanting to move it forward. And that was a recipe for what we saw that came later, I think.
But talking about the white apes, and then they defeat these white apes, and then they're right into the House of
Right.
Horrors, and I love that because you got Dracula and you got Frankenstein. It's a bad Frankenstein, but the Wolfman and the Mummy and all these characters come out, and I'm thinking that's the perfect setting for Kiss. You've got this dungeon with lanterns burning like sconces burning on the walls. You've got chains and you got trapdoors and stone walls, and it's just the perfect setting for a battle between Kiss and these Marvel monsters or the Universal monsters. I thought it was great. I love that, but that's my favorite part. I'll watch the apes and the House of Horrors part, and I'm entertained every time.
That's between watching Charlie's Angels and Love Boat reruns.
No, Fantasy.
That was there too. You mentioned the other two.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they brought those classic characters out, and that's when they got captured. So the classic characters are the ones that captured them, and that would have really, for Gene, I mean, from what he tells us anyway, he would have been very much into the Lon Chaney, Boris Karloff things, right? So that definitely brought that to the forefront, but also it would have been okay for them to be, for lack of a better term, lose a battle to them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Gene is a big horror movie and comic book nut. Maybe Gene had something to do with putting in those apes and horror movie characters. I thought it was great. I think that's my favorite part of the film. It has to be, is just those fight scenes between those characters. Which brings us up to a great moment, a very unique moment in the film, which we call Rip and Destroy.
That's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I think so.
It is.
Yeah, it's certainly a great moment for a lot of people. I would agree, for a lot of people.
I remember it was quite funny, actually, at the time. At the time, I laughed, very similar to Save Your Love. It was the same kind of thing, where me and my buddies were kind of like, we just got into it right away. So rip and destroy. And we, but you're teenagers, and but it's a good fun. It was, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had double platinum and I had Kiss Alive, so I was very familiar with Hotter Than Hell. I knew the song. So these robots come out, and I mean it's the actual Kiss playing the part of the robots, but we know, the viewer knows who they are. They're robots, and they start into playing Hotter Than Hell. And of course, there's a little foreshadowing, because one of them says, "What about our music?" And Devereaux says, "All taken care of."
That's right. Yeah, this means nothing.
So you're thinking,
it means nothing.
What's gonna I mean, you're on the edge of your seat, like, okay, what's going to happen now? So they come out playing Hotter Than Hell, and I thought, okay, Hotter Than Hell, yeah, they're just going to do Hotter Than Hell. I never expected that they'd change the lyrics. So then when Paul starts singing, I'm like, that's not it. I knew immediately, because I knew that song, and I knew it well. And I thought, they're not singing Hotter Than Hell. And by the time they get to the chorus, I'm thinking, yeah, this is kind of cool. They did a parody of their own song. And yes, I was doing the same thing. Rip it. It's fun. You got to have fun with that song. I found a really cool cover of that on YouTube, which was used for the opening of this film.
I love it.
This podcast. Yeah, I know, they did a really
But
good
there's something we haven't talked about is throughout the movie the traditional social stigmatisms that go with rock and roll versus a good lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle. It's like at that stage, it's like all these rock and roll kids are all drones, and they're just gonna all you have to do is change the lyrics, and they're all gonna go mental, and it's and you're taking my research money because to fund this band, my important research money, so I can make monkeys and things that jump off of roller coasters. This important, it's like there's all this social, like it kisses this, it's exactly that goes back to the early days of Kiss when everybody looked at them and said there's the devil, there's the knights in Satan's service, and it's just this subtle theme throughout the movie, just trying to it's the old 50s, and I just couldn't help but I just think, oh yeah, that's why I said before, I feel like I want to rip and destroy something because man, they changed those lyrics and I just snapped.
But what's really I think you got a good point there. You're reading way too much into it, but there's this great moment at the beginning when the audience realizes they're not singing the right lyrics, and you can actually hear someone saying, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you trying? What are you guys trying to do?" Yeah, but then I hear someone go,
"Let's break something."
But towards the end, you got the whole mass of the audience. They've now been transformed. It's almost as if Paul Stanley's voice had some kind of subliminal frequency that got inside their brains and made them all chant, rip and destroy.
Yeah, it was the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Well, it's that whole theme, but that's the evilness. That's the scientist is playing on the. I know this. Of course, it's not serious, but it's just but that's the mad scientist who's looking at the superheroes Kiss and saying they're bad for society and I'm good for society and all that. And you guys are all mindless freaks, and I'm going to change the lyrics, and you're going to start tearing this place apart.
But like in terms of story, what is he intending to do by replicating Kiss and putting them on stage? Was he hoping to get these kids to rebel and become a massive 10,000 person body? Acting as his.
No, he just at that point in the movie he lost his job. They took away his money. Right? They were going to have to let him go. They wanted him to retire. He says, "You're going to pay for this." It was completely utterly revenge, and his.
But between that time and the end of the movie, he actually had time to build 4 Kiss robots. Wouldn't he be, if he was fired, wouldn't he take his lab away from him?
So you're saying we got to make sure this stuff is real? There's realism involved here?
Well, listen, I'm intending to deconstruct this film, and I'm going to start tearing apart that plot line.
I mean, I don't, there's lots of, that was the first time in this movie that I said to myself, this doesn't make sense. He couldn't have built those like that. No way he could. They took away his money. How the hell could he have built them?
Exactly. Oh, he recycled the apes. They're recycled apes.
Oh man, I have no
But-
answer for that.
But there's that other aspect. You got those doofus, rebellious teenagers at the beginning of
They
the
were
film.
scary.
And yeah, they were so frightening. And he captures them, but he turns them
Yeah.
into robots. That's an element of the plot line that there could look at it and try to tear it apart or think like, how did he make a robot out of a real person? Did he just use their likeness? What did he do with the real people if they're now robots? Did he put bionics inside their living skin? I mean, what went on
And what
there?
character?
I
and
don't
he
know.
He made certain types of characters out of them too. Remember what kind of characters they were?
They were Civil War.
They were
soldiers, weren't
they were like patriots, or they were
Yeah.
they were honorable characters. So they were these bikers that he turned
Yeah.
into. The irony of it all! They're going to be.
So there's the symbolism. The
I'm
evil
telling you,
turns
that's
good.
listen. You're missing the boat if you don't see that.
Oh, there's a great scene in the newer version that's not in the original American. Is those two doofus security guards are in their little security hut, and these Civil War teenager robots come in and attack them, and that was never in the original film. But there's some footage in that was shot that was never used on the NBC
Okay.
broadcast, and has been inserted and added to the, I guess, what was called the European release, but it later appears on Kissology Volume 2, which is what I was watching. I haven't yet watched the whole thing all the way through, so I want to sit down later on and just watch it, because it's a whole new edit, it's a whole new experience.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's just so it's very deep, and so where were we at? We're at the rip and destroy scene, right? And
Which leads us to how Kiss actually break away out of this cage, and the talismans are something that's really unique. And Melissa says at one point in time, she says, "I've heard of your talismans, but I never knew they were real." This must have been something that came up in the comic book? I don't know. I didn't really read the comic book too deeply.
but they also say in the movie. I don't understand how they were powerless, because they also said that we all have them inside us. So like they really were, basically they said they were powerless. So like everyone has their own talisman, right? So it was like, okay, I took your talisman, I hid it, I took it away from you, but then they say, well, it doesn't really have any power. I mean,
No, I got the opposite from that. I think Gene said all our power comes from these
Did ya?
talismans, and then Peter says, unless it's changed in the European version, but she looks at these talismans and she says, I heard about these. I didn't know they were real. And then Gene says it's the source of all our power. And then Peter says, yeah, without them, we're just ordinary human beings. So the premise is that if you can get these talismans, Kiss lose their
Yeah.
superpowers. So when they're fighting in the House of Horrors, Devereaux is pointing a laser beam at these talismans. He's got the talismans, and he's pointing a laser beam, and that's why
That's
they're
right.
losing their power. That's why Ace can't do his jaunting thing, and Gene is losing his fire, and Paul has no strength, and that's why he's able to capture them. But they use telepathy to bring these talismans in through the cage, and then this entrance from outer space, and they appear on stage against the other Kiss, and they have this big, huge battle on stage, which is, it's fun and it's stupid at the same time.
That's when Ace and Peter fly down and battle Eric and Tommy Thayer.
Yeah, that's it. The Eric and Tommy Thayer. How old was Tommy Thayer?
I don't know. But I thought of that. I thought of the coincidence. Of course, again, that's a whole nother podcast that we probably won't even go into. But I mean, but fighting, everybody calls, the clones, right? So here we have a movie where Kiss is fighting the clones. So you can't help but stop and reflect on that and think, isn't it ironic that they're and I don't think of Eric and Tommy as clones. That's not what I think. I have no problem with them. I have a problem with something else, but that's another podcast. But you can't help.
Oh no, you got me curious.
Well, no, I mean, I think I've been pretty
talk
vocal
about
about this. The only problem I have is, look, Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer. If they weren't there, the band wouldn't be there right now. Peter Criss can't play anymore. Ace Frehley really can't play the way he used to play anymore, and I really don't want to see the original band together. The only problem I've ever had, and I still have, is just with the makeup. And I know there's a business reason for it, but as a fan,
They need
But
their
as a
own
fan,
makeup.
it just because I go, I don't know, because as you started this movie, you started this discussion about first they show Peter first, you said, then they show Ace, right, and then they show Gene and Paul. You didn't say they showed the Catman first, they showed the Spaceman first, any of that bullshit. You said Ace, you said Peter. So to me, they were people. They weren't the characters. The characters came from these kind of movies. They came from this movie, really, and from the talismans and those kind of things. So anyway, it's a small thing. What's a big? No, I guess it's a big thing. I guess I'm not going to make a big thing out of it. But that's when it came to this movie. That's what I thought of. I said, "Wow." I said, it's just ironic that here they are fighting. At least two of them are fighting. Their clones that are dressed up like them and playing their music, right? So.
Yeah. It's and it's fun to watch. I like to try to tell who's the real Paul and who's the
stunt
double
double for Ace was fantastic. I think he was African American.
Yeah,
right?
He was. No, he doesn't look like it. None of them really look like the other person. But you know something? Gene Simmons wanted to do his own stunts, and it's very hard to tell Gene's double. I mean, you can certainly spot the other ones. But it's hard to tell Gene's double, and in a lot of those fight scenes where you actually have two Gene Simmons on stage, it's hard to tell. The guy's back on. Whenever you see that character front on, I would say 99% of the time it's Gene Simmons. He insisted on doing his own stunts, and rightly so. I mean, they're not hard.
Well,
stunts.
his moves are different, right?
In some of them, in some of them it's just a matter. Well, Ace did a lot of
Right.
flips and backflips and stuff like that. But I mean, Peter Criss is just a matter of, it's like swinging on a chandelier and doing a little roll on the stage. I mean, anyone could have done those stunts. I could do those.
Yeah,
stunts.
but you're right. But you're right. Gene's was kicking somebody or throwing them through the air. It wasn't doing flips. It wasn't doing hip tosses. It wasn't. It was like breathing fire, right? So it was.
No, I mean, watching it, I think Ace was the only one who really needed a stunt double because this guy was doing a lot of backflips and things that most people can't do. And this guy did it, and it really added to the character of Ace. I thought it was great. But when they show his face a little too close, it's like, no, that is not Ace Frehley.
No.
Definitely
But it was
not
a good
him.
battle scene, and that always a good battle scene always leads you into a concert, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, my favorite just before that, my favorite part is when Paul shoots a laser beam at the imposter, and then the imposter does the same thing, but Paul reflects it in a guitar, and the reflects off the guitar. Why it didn't smash the guitar in a zillion pieces, I don't know, but reflects off the. I guess it has the mirror guitar. It reflects it back, but it's not the mirror guitar. But anyway, it's a Gibson L6, but it reflects back into the imposter, and he blows up. It's a great little bit of film footage. I love it. But yes, and you get this big performance and Paul Stanley, right? You ready for the real kiss?
But that's what
everyone
you were
goes
really
insane.
waiting for. That's what I was waiting for. I mean, because that's what that was Kiss Alive too. Showing the bits of showing us what that looked like, right?
Yeah, that stage, those costumes, that era of music, yeah. Which brings us almost to the end of the film, and probably one of the worst endings of any film. And I love the part where Paul Stanley is talking on one of those home videos, and he says, "I, for one, have no idea how the film ended." No, he probably didn't, because it's the most ridiculous, stupid ending. But, the ending is we find Devereaux in his lab, sitting in his chair. They spin him around, and he's this sort of like a zombie version of himself. His hair actually grew longer. It's gray. His eyes move, which is kind of stupid. They should have done several takes and picked the best one. Maybe that was the best one. But his eyes move. And why? Why? Just because Kiss defeated his robots, why should he actually transform like someone who'd had the biggest fright of their life? His hair is gray, and he's found dead. Rigor mortis, with his hands still on the controls, and they turn him. Why? Why did he die? What killed him? We don't know.
Well, for me, it was more when I looked at it again. I'm thinking, why didn't you just spend a little bit more time and maybe a little bit more money on the movie and explain it? Like what do we have an ending? I mean, this is kind of a key. This is probably the central figure in the whole movie, the Phantom, Phantom, right? He's the man.
He's the Phantom. He's the title character.
And at the end of the movie, we don't. So the stage is going on. They're fighting on the stage. They're playing the concert. And then if maybe the music was so blistering hot it shattered him. But whatever it was, why not just give us? Why not? I guess it just showed me the shortcuts, right? It's like it ended the way it began. The beginning, I didn't understand why it just started in the middle of a roller coaster ride, and at the end, it just ended like that.
Sorry, something you said.
What was that?
Funny. The music was too loud. The music. He doesn't like Kiss music, so that's what made him turn gray and gave him a heart attack.
I know it's so loud. I know. I can tell you this much. Like I said, when I saw them in '77, my ears rang for 3 days, and the whiskers on my face burned. So it's quite possible he was. I don't know.
Of course, he's watched them on a 13-inch Sony black and white.
Yeah. So, yeah.
In his lab.
Right, that just doesn't. I don't get that. That just shows. I think it's funny. Like if you think of yourself as a person, okay, and the things that you stand for, right, and things that you stand for in terms of what you want your legacy to be and the quality of things that you do. Can you imagine yourself being in that band and allowing that ending to end the way it did, or allowing that much control to get away from you? Because they probably had no idea.
No, and they didn't realize how bad it was until they saw it. And I read this somewhere just recently, but they did a private screening just for friends and family and record company people, and they were just absolutely flabbergasted. It made them look like total doofuses. It was a bad film, but they'd put so much time and money into this, and it was going to be the NBC movie of the week, and Hanna-Barbera wanted to get their money back, and they were just hoping, like, if this makes 5 million people go out tomorrow and start buying some Kiss records, then they've done their job. So you had to pretty much grin and bear it and bite the bullet and swallow your pride and let it go.
It is what it is. And as I said before, I don't. For me, like I said, because it's so bad, it becomes more interesting to me, and it really does. Sure. And it's like one of those things. And they shouldn't. I think at this stage, they shouldn't feel bad about it, and they should look back on it the same way most of the. I think almost every fan does, with some level of affection for it, and probably to learn a lesson from it. That it like when you look at those things, there's all kinds of signs and signals in that process that was telling them that maybe they need to do something a little different, and you don't listen to then they didn't listen to those things, right? And but like you said, it is what it is, right? I mean, the 1996 reunion wouldn't have meant a damn thing if they never broke up in the first place, and so history is what it is, and you can't change it at this stage.
No, I mean, you just got to look at it as a footnote in the whole history, and I like it because, like I say, it's a very unique item. I find the merchandise is overdone. It doesn't interest me, but these little odd things that come along, like the Paul Lynde special and the Kiss Meets the Phantom, I treasure those. It's the memory of that experience and what it meant to me in 1978. And I'll probably watch it many, many, many more times over the next few years. I have a new version that I can watch now in stunning HD, DVD, whatever it is. It certainly looks better than the VHS that I have.
Yeah, and I guess for me it's that. I mean, I appreciate what we're doing because meaning like these podcasts, and I was saying to my wife the other day, it's really ironic that. Probably for you and I just moved here from Fredericton, and we're probably doing more things together now that I moved away than anywhere near the one. Yeah. But it's also it's been kind of fun to see. For me, the story for me is it's fun to see these things through somebody else's eyes, and I joke and tongue in cheek and all these kind of things, but at the end of the day, I really do appreciate the joy that it brings to other people. And like you have the other day you were sending me notes on this, and you said I'm really looking forward to doing this video cast, and I said, yeah, no kidding, I can feel it right over the airwaves. It's coming across, but that transfers to me too. I had fun with this stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm amazed by the numbers. Over 400 views on the first one, and over 200 views on the second one. And, I think Kiss fans just, I'm sure people would love to get on the conversation. Maybe we'll try to do that sometime. But to just put your headphones on and listen to two guys you don't even know, but they're talking about something that I don't think there's any other bands, maybe the Beatles and the Stones and Elvis, but I don't think there's too many other bands out there that have the kind of fans that Kiss have, where there's just so much to talk about and so many interesting things. This is probably one of my most interesting podcasts was deconstructing that film because it's such a unique thing.
Yeah, and we'll do, and as the viewers can probably see, like we're flip flopping a little bit. Like we did something on Image. We did album covers, which was around marketing and the impact of the art and the album covers and what did they mean. And then we flipped it over and we explored the music together and the musical side of it. And then this time we went back to sort of the socio impact of the movie and more of the drama and the art, the merchandise and the art part of it. We'll flip back and forth like that and from topic to topic, and that's the beauty of it for us, is that we like both, and I don't think it would be much fun for anybody if we just sat and played guitars all the time.
No, and I didn't want the last one to become a jam. I mean, we can certainly jam out, but I think it was more interesting to talk about the riffs and deconstruct them and talk about how Kiss music is put together. So I think that I really wanted to avoid jamming on the last episode.
And remember what Ace said during the MTV Live? He says, playing acoustic guitar was a nightmare. Right? He said that, and for us, getting guitars on here is a nightmare. It's really difficult.
Yeah, one of the podcasts coming up soon is where we talk about Ace and Peter. We're going to celebrate Ace and Peter. We're going to celebrate that era when they were just as important as Paul and Gene. Peter and Ace are fondly loved as part of the band as much as any other member, and we just want to celebrate that era. It's an era that's gone by and probably will never come back again, so we want to really just take a show and talk about those guys for who they were and their efforts and their creativity.
Yeah.
And
Aces, I called it Acisms and Peter Beats.
Acisms.
There are definitely acisms, and there's definitely Peter Beats, and because there's all this there's this whole discussion about what a real great musicianship and all that bullshit, and at the end of the day, we'll get to that. So,
okay, so Jeff, this was a lot of fun discussing Kiss Meets the Phantom, and I'm looking forward to the next podcast. So this is Jeff Scott in St. John signing off.
I'm Jeff Gray in Stewiacke, Nova Scotia, signing off as well. Thank you, everybody.